Carl Jung said that empaths can follow a psychic map that most people never find to find their true self. Not through therapy, not through prayer, and not even after years of looking for God. Jung found that empaths have a special psychological edge when it comes to becoming their own person, but only if they can figure out the one shadow pattern that's been lost in everyone else's emotions. Imagine that you're sitting alone after being around someone else's bad feelings all day, someone's worry, someone else's anger, or the stress in your family that you don't say anything about. You're tired and don't know what's really yours. You have a shockingly clear sense of what other people are feeling, but there is nothing there when you try to connect with your true self. Jung studied what he called individuation for many years. Individualization is the process of becoming who you really are underneath all the masks and images. But he learned that empaths have a special problem. Your best trait can also be your biggest problem when you're trying to find yourself. You'll never get lost in other people's feelings again once you understand Jung's plan. This isn't another spiritual shortcut or harmful way of thinking about positive. It shows the deepest truths about empathic awareness, like a mental roadmap. You'll not only get back in touch with your true self, but you'll also learn how to use your sensitivity as a strength instead of a weakness. But here's what empaths find so scary about Jung's discovery. Being able to feel other people's feelings isn't just a gift. It's been teaching you, without realizing it, to give up being your true self. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Because you are empathic, you can reach a mental state I call emotional fusion, in which your boundaries become so porous that you lose track of where you end and others begin. You've been taking in not only feelings, but also whole pieces of other people's identities from everyone you meet." Jung knew that empaths have a special kind of what he called the persona problem. You've been hiding your true self from yourself. While most people wear masks to hide their true selves from other people, you strengthen the false persona and weaken your link to what Jung called the self every time you put someone else's emotional needs ahead of your own. What's really sad isn't that you feel too much. The reason is that you were taught to think that feeling everything makes you more spiritual, developed, and caring. But Jung found something that will shatter this illusion. Real kindness can only come from a whole self, not from an empath who is broken up and lost in other people's emotional chaos. Jung's first idea about empathic individuation is about the empathic shadow, which is the part of yourself that you've pushed away because it doesn't fit your sensitive healer identity. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Empaths often avoid facing their shadow side, which is the need to be wanted. There is a part of you that deep down quietly likes being the emotional rock that everyone turns to in times of trouble. This shadow side controls through caregiving, manipulates through martyrdom, and stays in charge through suffering. A part of you feels unique because you can feel things that other people can't. You probably haven't even realized this. A part of you that gets selfish pleasure from being the one who takes on everyone else's pain. Jung would call this your wounded healer complex. It means that your identity becomes so tied to helping other people that you unintentionally put them in situations where they need your emotional help. But it gets worse. Your anger is also part of your empathetic shadow. Years of holding back anger at being crossed, having your needs not met, and finding your true self hidden under other people's emotional needs. You've learned that anger isn't spiritual. Pushing it into the unconscious makes it worse, where it shows up as passive aggression, victim awareness, and what Jung called emotional possession. Jung noticed that a healthy person doesn't hurt other people. Usually it's people who have been hurt who hurt others. You could use your empathic abilities as tools in your shadow. You can control someone by making them feel guilty, influence them by being emotionally overwhelmed, and punish them by pulling away from their healing presence. The most dangerous part of having an empathic shadow is projecting your unresolved anger onto other people, seeing them as toxic or selfish, while not noticing these same patterns in yourself. You become what Jung called a shadow hunter, someone who is obsessed with finding darkness in other people but can't see their own. If you've ever liked being the only one who really knows how someone feels, say, "I was their chosen healer." Recognizing the shade isn't about shame, it's about fitting in. Jung said that when the shadow is made aware, it stops being an unconscious force of control and turns into a source of real strength. The second insight by Jung shows how empaths get stuck in what I call the sensitive persona. This is a false identity that is based on being emotionally open to everyone but yourself. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Being the empathetic healer may seem like a good thing, but it's really just a clever way to protect yourself. You know that being kind and caring will get you love, respect, and a sense of purpose. But being this character means you have to constantly watch over and control other people's emotions while ignoring your own. Jung found that the more powerful your character is, the more hidden your true self is. You start to live what I call empathic performance, which means that you are always scanning the room for emotional problems, changing your energy to calm other people down, and absorbing stress without even realizing it. The sad truth is that your act of empathy separates you from real empathy. To really understand what someone else is feeling, you need to know your limits and where to stop, but your identity makes emotional fusion happen, which is when you lose yourself in the thoughts and feelings of other people. The trap works like this. Every time you calm someone down or take their anger away, you get a validation hit that makes the character stronger. You start to think that your worth relies on how well you can control other people's feelings. This feeling was known by Jung as the helper's high. It's like an addiction that keeps you stuck in codependent habits. But the image wants you to give up something, your real emotional expression. You learn to push your own wants aside, push your pain to the side, and put other people's feelings ahead of your own truth. Jung told us, the foundation of all mental illness is the unwillingness to experience legitimate suffering. Your real pain includes the sadness of not being seen for who you are, the anger at having your boundaries broken, and the fear of finding out what's left of your life after you stop taking care of everyone else's emotions. The persona keeps you from facing these painful truths, but it also keeps you from using your real power. Jung knew that personas will break down over time. At some point, the false self can't keep going. The emotional fusion gets too much to handle, and the performance starts to feel more like a prison than a mission. This breakdown isn't a sign of mental illness, it's your mind trying to get you back to who you really are. The question isn't if your empathic character will fall apart, but if you'll be brave enough to meet your true self when it does. You may have guessed that Jung's model for empathic individuation involves conscious separation, which is the mental process of separating your real self from the emotional fusion you've been living in. Jung said, individuality is the opposite of being a member of a group, an institution, a race, or a nation. As you probably learned from your own life, individuation means learning to tell the difference between your real feelings and those that you're trying to hide, between intuitive insight and anxious hypervigilance, and between real compassion and codependent caregiving. This process can be scary because it makes you feel like you're betraying who you are. You may have heard of Jung's 4 steps of empathic development. Shadow integration means being aware of your need to be wanted, your anger when boundaries are crossed, and your secret superiority complex about being more sensitive than other people. At this time, you feel like you're going to die because you're breaking down the identity that has given you love and purpose. Giving up the job of being everyone's emotional caretaker, on purpose, is called persona dissolution. Jung called this the dark night of the soul. For empaths, because when there is no drama, you feel the nothingness you've been trying to avoid. When you're not changing someone, you find that you don't know who you are. Active imagination means learning to talk to your inner mind instead of processing other people's mental information all the time. Listen to your thoughts. Take care of your emotional needs, and work on what I call internal empathy. This means being able to feel and understand what you're going through. When you reach self-realization, you develop what Jung called the transcendent function. This is the ability to feel deeply without losing who you are, to help others without giving up your own needs, and to be sensitive without being open. You may have felt Jung's advice that individuation doesn't happen in a straight line. He told us, The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved but only outgrown. You don't need to be perfect. What you do need to be deliberate about how you use your sensitive gifts. Jung's work with shadows shows you what I call the dark empath, the unconscious ways that your sensitivity can hurt you if you don't deal with it. Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. The dark truth that most empaths don't want to face is that focusing on your emotions too much can turn into a form of psychological vampirism. When you think about other people's feelings all the time, you're taking in their energy without realizing it. You become hooked on emotional drama because it makes you feel alive and like you have a reason in life. This pattern was named emotional possession by Jung. In this state, you lose your own awareness and are taken over by the emotions of others. You might unintentionally cause or draw crises because you feel lost and empty without them. You start to depend so much on being needed that you hurt your own happiness to keep up your role as the wounded therapist. As a weapon, the dark empath also uses sensitivity. They control through victim awareness, manipulate through guilt, and punish by pulling away from your healing presence. Jung called this psychological poisoning, which happens when your shadow that you haven't integrated taints your empathic skills. You could exaggerate your feelings to get attention, play up your sensitivity to avoid taking responsibility, or use your insights to trick other people. Jung called this kind of person a false prophet, because they say they can help heal, but actually keep things broken. But the worst thing about empathy that isn't fully integrated is projection, unconsciously projecting your own shamed greed onto others, and seeing them as narcissistic while not seeing your own need to be the special healer. When you become obsessed with finding toxic people, you lose sight of the trends you're following. Jung said that shadow projection always involves the inferior function, which is the part of your mind that you've ignored the most. For many empaths, this means being angry in a healthy way, being selfish in the right way, and setting limits without feeling guilty. You try to heal or fix other people by projecting the parts of yourself that you don't want to show onto them. This is an unconscious way of integrating your own shadow. When you realize that your psychic gifts can hurt you if you are not aware of them, you can start to heal. Jung said, the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. Integrating means taking responsibility for your ability to control others' minds, become emotionally dependent on others, and feel superior. This isn't about feeling bad about yourself. It's about becoming aware of habits that happen without you realizing it. Jung found that your shadow can give you real power once you learn to embrace it. Your dark empath shade holds the power to set healthy limits, be selfish in the right ways, and say no without feeling bad about it. Jung's deepest insight into empathic individuation is the empathic mirror, realizing that the person you're trying to heal shows you a part of your own mind. Jung said, everyone you meet knows something you don't know but need to know. Learn from them. This mirror effect works through unconscious psychological processes called projection and introjection, in which you project your own unloved traits onto others and take on their projected traits in return. You feel driven to heal everyone because they carry some part of your shadow or untapped potential. The hurt person who makes you want to help them might be a reflection of your own unhealed wounds. The angry person who makes you want to keep the peace could be holding the anger you've been trying to hide. The narcissist who drains your humanity may be showing you a need for approval that you haven't told anyone about. Jung said that empaths are pulled to people who carry their shadow material without even realizing it. You become concerned with healing other people because you're trying to heal the parts of yourself that have been split off. This is why sympathetic relationships often turn into codependencies. You need someone to carry your shameful thoughts and feelings, and they need you to take in all of their emotional excess. But Jung had a revolutionary idea. Once you understand the mirror effect, every connection is a chance to grow as a person. Instead of trying to fix other people, you should ask yourself, what part of myself does this person reflect? What quality that I haven't owned do they carry for me? What untapped potential are they showing me? This change takes empathy from being unconscious absorption to being aware thought. You understand that your strong desire to help others is really your mind's way of trying to put together all of its broken parts. Jung called this active imagination, which means using relationships as mirrors to learn about yourself instead of fixing things. The mirror effect also explains why some people make you behave in strange ways. Jung said, "Everything that bothers us about other people can help us understand ourselves." The person who makes you dependent may be showing you a need for care that you haven't been acknowledged. The person whose anger scares you could be holding the anger you're too scared to show. When you stop trying to change other people, and instead ask, what are they teaching me about myself? This doesn't mean you stop caring about other people or become self-centered. It means using your empathy as a way to learn more about yourself instead of giving up on yourself. Jung knew that conscious empaths develop psychic reciprocity, which means they can heal others at the same time. When you heal your own projected dark material, you naturally help others heal theirs, but not by fixing or absorbing it. You do this by being fully present and present in the present moment. Jung thought of the individuated empath as what I call a conscious sensitive, someone whose empathic gifts are fully merged with who they are as a person. Jung said, "The difference between a good life and a bad life is how well you walk through the fire." The aware empath doesn't get lost in other people's feelings anymore. You learn psychic sovereignty, which means being able to feel deeply without being overwhelmed, to care without losing yourself, and to help without getting worn out. Don't worry about becoming less emotional. It's about becoming sensitive, on purpose. Being able to hold differences in creative tension is a transcendent function that conscious empaths have. You can be open-hearted and cautious of yourself, compassionate and wise, all at the same time. You no longer see these as opposites, but as parts of combined empathy that work together. Jung said that becoming your own person doesn't get rid of your empathy, it just makes it better. You learn holy discernment, which is the skill of telling the difference between real guidance and anxious hypervigilance, real intuition and projected fear, and healthy empathy and codependent absorption. The aware empath helps from a place of wholeness, not from a place of hurt. Jung said, "Where love reigns, there is no will to power, and where the will to power is paramount, love is lacking." Your service stops being a desperate way to get love or a sense of purpose by fixing other people. It stops being a reflection of who you really are. Witnessing consciousness means being able to hold room for other people's experiences without taking them on as your own. You can feel someone's pain without taking on their duty, help them without caring about how things turn out, and love them without getting caught up in their thoughts. This awareness changes your relationships from codependent fusion to conscious partnership, which is what Jung meant. You attract people who don't need you to carry their mental weight, and you no longer need approval from other people to feel good about yourself. As an empath grows, they become what Jung imagined, a bridge between worlds, able to move between the emotional and the practical, spiritual and social ones. Jung knew that aware empaths naturally lead, not by being dominant, but by blending in with others. By being yourself, you make it possible for others to be themselves. Your limits help people get along with each other. Taking care of yourself shows how to be sensitive without becoming a victim. Jung's idea of emotional individuation doesn't say that you should stop being sensitive to become what I call consciously empathic, or someone who has merged their sensitivity with being themselves in a real way. Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Transformation happens through the transcendent function, which is when the opposing forces in your mind come together to make a higher whole. You have to balance your need to help others with your need to honor yourself, your ability to feel deeply with your need for limits. Jung taught that change doesn't happen in straight lines, but in circles. You'll keep running into the same patterns, like wanting to take on other people's pain, wanting to solve everyone else's problems, and feeling guilty for setting limits. But each time, you'll be aware of them on a deeper level. Emotional alchemy is the skill of an integrated empath, that lets them turn absorbed emotional energy into aware wisdom. You learn to see, understand, and answer from your true self instead of reactive empathy, so you don't feel overwhelmed. Jung called this process psychological death and rebirth. It means letting go of your old identity as the hurt healer, the emotional sponge, or the always caring person. For your real, sensitive self to show up, your shadow has to die. You might feel scared during this process because you're letting go of a persona that has brought you love and meaning. Jung, on the other hand, found that after this death comes the birth of the self, which is your real nature, free from unconscious programming and codependent patterns. You become someone who helps others from a place of strength instead of weakness, and someone who heals from a place of balance instead of weakness. When kindness stops being an unconscious urge and starts being a choice, you've fully changed. You can feel how other people feel without taking on their feelings. You don't have to give up on yourself to help others. You don't have to feel bad or upset when you set limits. Jung said that individuated empaths become hurt healers who have been healed, or people who can help others through emotional problems because they have been through their own and come out on the other side. When you're whole, your sensitivity is a gift you give to the world, not a burden you carry for other people. Leave a comment below saying I choose conscious empathy if you're ready to use your sensitivity as a power. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next